Hello! I would be very pleased if you would like the video. Subscribe so you don't miss new videos every day that will help you relax. I'm also curious where you are listening to me from and what time it is now. Write it in the comments. Enjoy watching. The first light of dawn crept through the narrow streets of the Roman camp, painting long shadows across the rough cobblestones. Marcus, a young legionary, stirred from his slumber on the simple straw bedding. The air was crisp, carrying the mingled scents of wet earth and the faint tang of burning wood from the nearby forges. His tunic clung damp to his body, and the dull ache in his muscles reminded him that yesterday's training had been merciless. In the camp, life was already moving. The clatter of sandals against stone, the hum of soldiers exchanging morning greetings, and the distant sound of orders barked by centurions created a rhythm Marcus had grown accustomed to. He sat up, stretching, and ran a hand over his short, neatly trimmed hair, a practical style for battle. Today, as with every day, he would march, train, and prepare for the unknown threats that could emerge beyond the walls of the city. After a quick wash at the trough, Marcus donned his armor, the lorica segmentata, polished to a dull shine, the gladius at his side, and the scutum, heavy yet reassuring, strapped to his back. The legionary belt, a mark of his service and status, clicked as he adjusted it. Around him, comrades were performing the same ritual, their movements precise, practiced, almost ceremonial. Breakfast was a simple affair: hard bread, salted cheese, and a small cup of watered wine. There was little time for leisure. The legions demanded discipline and constant vigilance. Marcus ate quickly, his eyes scanning the camp for signs of new orders or disturbances. Discipline was the backbone of Roman military might, and every soldier knew that failure could mean punishment, or worse. At first light, the cohort assembled. Centurion Gaius, a stern man whose voice could cut through the morning mist like a blade, inspected the ranks. Marcus stood at attention, feeling the weight of the scutum pressing into his shoulder, the leather straps biting slightly. He had learned to bear it without complaint, a lesson reinforced through countless drills. The centurion's eyes swept the soldiers, stopping briefly on Marcus before moving on. Training began immediately. Shields collided with a harsh clang, the rhythmic stomping of feet echoing in the morning air. The centurions shouted instructions and corrections. Marcus swung his gladius in practiced arcs, dodging, thrusting, parrying, all while keeping in step with his comrades. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes, but he pushed through the exhaustion. Strength, speed, and precision were paramount. The life of a legionary was relentless. By mid-morning, the drills shifted to tactical exercises. Marcus and his cohort practiced formation maneuvers, the famous testudo shield wall, moving as one living organism. Each man's life depended on the coordination of the group. One mistake, one faltering step, could spell disaster. Marcus felt a deep pride in this unity, a bond forged in sweat and discipline. The roar of mock battle cries filled the camp, a symphony of war in preparation. As the sun climbed higher, the heat began to press down on the camp, and the clang of metal on metal rang louder in the air. Marcus wiped his brow and adjusted the straps of his armor, feeling the weight in every movement. Today's exercises weren't just about skill. They were a test of endurance. The centurions had promised a long march by noon, and the thought of it made even the toughest soldiers groan quietly to themselves. Before the march, there was maintenance. Shields were inspected, gladi sharpened, and sandals repaired. Marcus knelt beside his equipment, rubbing oil onto the leather straps of his scutum, checking every rivet. Even the smallest defect could prove fatal in the chaos of battle. Around him, soldiers shared quiet advice and joked to keep spirits high, though laughter was sparse. Each man carried the weight of Rome on his shoulders, and the sense of duty was heavy in the midday sun. By late morning, the cohort was ready. The centurion led them out of the camp gates, and the rhythm of marching feet filled the streets of the Roman settlement. Marcus fell into line, feeling the familiar cadence of hundreds of boots striking stone in perfect synchronization. The city beyond the walls bustled with merchants, citizens, and artisans, each busy in their own lives, unaware of the silent, disciplined force passing among them. Marcus's mind wandered briefly to his family, left behind in a distant province, but duty pulled him back into the present. The march was grueling. Dust rose from the roads, and the heat pressed relentlessly on the legionaries. Marcus adjusted the straps of his pack, feeling every ounce of its weight. The centurion's sharp voice reminded them of proper posture, the precision of step, the importance of keeping formation. The testudo was practiced even on the move, shields overlapping to protect against imagined projectiles. Sweat soaked through tunics, and muscles screamed with fatigue, but no one faltered. Discipline was drilled into every fiber of their being, and each step reinforced the unity of the cohort. By mid-afternoon, they reached a small clearing outside the city, designated for mock skirmishes. Here, Marcus and his comrades simulated battles, attacking and defending against imaginary enemies. The air was filled with the clash of metal, shouted commands, and the grunts of exertion. Marcus could feel adrenaline sharpening his senses. Every swing of the gladius, every movement of the scutum, had to be perfect. One misstep could cost a life. Not in training, but the lesson was clear. Precision under pressure saved lives. Evening approached, and the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the camp. Marcus returned from the drills, exhausted but exhilarated. The centurion nodded in approval at his effort. Soldiers washed in nearby streams, sharing food and stories of battles past. Marcus sat quietly, reflecting on the day. Pride, fatigue, and a sense of purpose mingled within him. Rome was vast and powerful, and each legionary carried a small piece of its might. In this life, each day was a test, each step a demonstration of loyalty, strength, and unwavering resolve. As dusk fell over the Roman camp, Marcus removed his armor and laid it carefully beside him. The glow of the setting sun painted the tents in warm orange hues, casting long shadows across the rough ground. Soldiers gathered near the fire, sharing small portions of bread and salted meat. Conversations were quiet, filled with the weariness of the day and the camaraderie that bound them. Marcus listened, letting the crackle of the fire soothe his aching muscles. After the meal, he walked to the edge of the camp, gazing at the distant hills. Thoughts of home tugged at his mind, but duty anchored him firmly in the present. Each legionary carried a life of discipline and sacrifice, and Marcus understood the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The distant sound of a wolf's howl reminded him of the wild lands beyond the city, lands that Rome might one day claim through the courage of men like him. Night drills followed, a final test of vigilance. Torches flickered as centurions called out formations and commands. Marcus moved through the maneuvers with practiced precision, every step synchronized with the soldiers around him. The cold night air stung his face, and his breath came in clouds. But he pushed forward. Discipline and focus were paramount. Even in darkness, the legion's unity had to remain flawless. Finally, the camp fell silent. Marcus lay on his straw bedding, staring at the sky, its stars glittering like distant shields. Fatigue weighed heavily, yet his mind remained alert, reflecting on the day's lessons. Pride in his service mingled with longing for home, a balance he had learned to accept. The life of a legionary was relentless, demanding both strength and resilience. Marcus drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep, ready to face another day under Rome's banner. The next morning, Marcus woke before the first light, his body stiff from the previous day's exertion. The camp was already stirring with the sounds of preparation. Soldiers sharpened blades, adjusted armor, and reviewed orders whispered among cohorts. Marcus performed his morning routine, washing quickly in the trough and checking the straps of his lorica segmentata. Every day began the same way, yet each day carried the weight of expectation and the unknown threats of Rome's frontiers. Breakfast was modest: dry bread, a small portion of salted fish, and watered wine. He ate quickly, mindful of time, while listening to the low murmur of conversation around him. Veterans spoke quietly of battles far from the city, sharing tips and tales of courage. Marcus absorbed their words, learning not just the skill of combat, but the mindset required to endure long campaigns. Discipline, they said, was what separated survivors from the fallen. By mid-morning, the cohort assembled for the march. The centurion's voice cut sharply across the camp as he issued orders, his eyes scanning the ranks. Marcus fell into line, adjusting the scutum on his shoulder, feeling the reassuring weight of his equipment. The rhythm of synchronized footsteps filled the streets of the settlement as they moved out. Citizens watched in quiet fascination, unaware of the rigor and sacrifice behind each measured step of Rome's soldiers. The march stretched for hours, sun climbing higher, the road rough beneath their sandals. Dust swirled in the dry air, and sweat soaked through tunics and armor. Marcus focused on maintaining formation, adjusting his pace, and monitoring his comrades. The centurion occasionally barked commands, testing endurance and attention. Each man's life depended not only on personal skill but on the cohesion of the unit. The cohesion and trust in one another made the march both grueling and empowering. By late morning, the cohort arrived at a clearing beyond the city walls, designated for tactical exercises. Marcus adjusted his scutum and gladius, feeling the familiar weight as he prepared for drills. The centurion's sharp voice cut through the air, giving orders for formations, charges, and defensive maneuvers. Each movement was precise, rehearsed countless times. Marcus focused on coordination with his comrades, knowing that unity was as deadly as any weapon. The training began with mock skirmishes. Shields clashed, swords glinted in the sunlight, and battle cries echoed across the field. Marcus parried and thrust with practiced precision, sweat stinging his eyes. Every action required awareness, timing, and discipline. The centurions moved among the soldiers, correcting stances, adjusting grips, and demanding relentless focus. The exercises were exhausting, but each moment reinforced the cohesion and efficiency of the legion. After an hour, the focus shifted to the testudo formation. Marcus raised his scutum, aligning with the shields of those around him. The group moved as one, impenetrable to imaginary missiles raining down. Coordination was paramount. One misstep could break the formation. Marcus felt pride in their flawless execution, the physical exertion blending with the satisfaction of shared achievement. In the discipline of these drills, the strength of Rome was forged daily. As the afternoon sun climbed, Marcus and the cohort practiced marching in formation while carrying full packs. The weight pressed heavily on his shoulders, muscles burning with fatigue. Centurions shouted corrections, insisting on posture, pace, and synchronization. Every step reinforced the discipline instilled in each legionary. By the end of the exercises, sweat-drenched tunics and the ground was scattered with sand kicked up by thousands of sandals. Yet the men remained resolute, ready for any challenge. With training complete, the cohort returned to camp. Marcus removed his armor, rubbing sore muscles and catching his breath. Soldiers tended to weapons, cleaned armor, and shared stories of previous campaigns. The camaraderie was quiet but palpable, forged in shared endurance and discipline. As Marcus sat by the fire, he reflected on the day's lessons. The life of a legionary was arduous, yet rewarding, each day a testament to strength, loyalty, and the unyielding power of Rome. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the camp settled into a quieter rhythm. Marcus sat near the fire, cleaning his gladius and inspecting his scutum for dents and scratches. The day's exertion left him sore, but the pride of mastering drills and formations lingered. Around him, comrades ate their modest meals and shared hushed stories. Laughter was rare but treasured, a brief reprieve from the relentless demands of a legionary's life. Marcus wandered to the edge of the camp, gazing at the distant hills fading into twilight. The wind carried the scents of wood smoke and the nearby river. Thoughts of home, distant family, and the streets of Rome he had once walked mingled with memories of recent campaigns. Despite the fatigue, a sense of purpose anchored him. Each day, each step, and each maneuver reinforced the bond between him and his fellow soldiers, a trust built on discipline and shared sacrifice. Night drills followed, though they were shorter than those of midday. Torches flickered along the training grounds as centurions barked orders for formations and defensive exercises. Marcus moved with practiced precision, following the commands without hesitation. Cold night air stung his face, and the clatter of sandals against the ground echoed in the dark. Focus and alertness were paramount. Even in relative safety, the life of a legionary demanded vigilance at all times. Finally, Marcus returned to his tent, laying out his armor carefully before resting on his straw bedding. The stars above twinkled faintly, a silent reminder of the vast world beyond the camp. Fatigue pressed heavily, yet his mind reflected on the day. Lessons learned, bonds strengthened, and the endless drive to uphold Rome's glory. As sleep claimed him, he felt both exhaustion and fulfillment, knowing another demanding day awaited, and he would meet it with the same discipline and resolve. Sleep came fitfully for Marcus that night. Dreams were a chaotic mix of past battles, distant provinces, and faces of comrades long gone. The clash of swords echoed in his mind, mingling with the roar of unseen enemies. He felt both fear and exhilaration, as if reliving moments where skill and luck had preserved his life. Each vision reminded him of the fragility of existence, even for a trained legionary of Rome. In his dreams, the city of Rome itself seemed alive, streets twisting and shifting like a labyrinth. Senators and citizens blurred together, and Marcus wandered among them, torn between duty and longing for home. He could hear the distant call to arms, the same disciplined rhythm he had marched to that day. Every sound, every movement in the dream carried weight, pressing him to remain vigilant even in sleep. One vision showed a battlefield shrouded in smoke and fire. Comrades fell, some reaching out, their eyes pleading for aid. Marcus swung his gladius, parried invisible blows, and moved as one with the phantoms around him. The adrenaline felt real, muscles tensing in his sleep, his heartbeat racing. He awoke briefly, gasping, and then sank back into slumber, determined to face another day with courage. By the faint light of dawn, Marcus stirred once more. Though dreams had left a lingering unease, they also reinforced his sense of purpose. Being a legionary was not just physical endurance, it was mental fortitude, the ability to confront fear and uncertainty without faltering. Each challenge, whether real or imagined, shaped him into a soldier worthy of Rome. He rose, preparing silently for the day ahead, carrying both the weight of his armor and the lessons of the night in his mind. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Marcus joined his cohort for the morning inspection. Centurion Gaius paced along the rows of soldiers, eyes sharp and unyielding. Marcus adjusted his armor and straightened his posture, feeling the familiar pressure of the lorica segmentata against his chest. The centurion's gaze swept across the ranks, noting minor imperfections and offering curt advice, reinforcing the relentless discipline of Roman military life. Following inspection, new orders were delivered. The cohort would march to a nearby hill to establish a temporary outpost, practicing fortification and defensive strategies. Marcus felt a familiar mix of anticipation and weariness. Each task was physically demanding, yet vital for the cohesion and preparedness of the legion. He reviewed the route in his mind, ensuring he understood the commands and the formations required for both the march and potential skirmishes. The march began under a sky streaked with pink and gold. Marcus fell into step, matching the rhythm of hundreds of sandals hitting the ground in unison. The weight of his pack and shield pressed on him, but he maintained focus. Around him, soldiers exchanged brief words or silent glances of solidarity. The unity of the cohort was more than coordination. It was trust, forged in sweat, discipline, and the shared purpose of defending Rome's borders. Upon reaching the designated hill, Marcus and his comrades immediately began constructing temporary fortifications. Palisades were erected, ditches dug, and watch positions established. The sun climbed higher, burning through his tunic and heating the packed earth. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, muscles aching, yet he continued diligently. Every nail driven, every stake planted, reinforced the strength of their position and the legion's readiness. Even in the harsh labor, pride surged within him. This was the essence of service to Rome. Once the fortifications were complete, the centurion ordered tactical exercises on the hill. Marcus and his cohort practiced defending against imaginary attackers, moving in perfect coordination. Shields clashed, gladies swung, and soldiers shouted commands and warnings. Each maneuver demanded focus, strength, and trust in those beside him. Marcus felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, his senses sharpened by the rigorous drills, every movement executed with precision. The exercises intensified as the centurion introduced simulated chaos. Smoke from small controlled fires obscured vision, and sudden shouts tested their reactions. Marcus parried invisible strikes, ducked behind the scutum, and maintained his position in the line. Coordination and timing were paramount. Any hesitation could compromise the formation. Sweat poured down his face, mixing with the grime of the day. Yet he pushed through the exhaustion, driven by duty and pride. As the sun reached its peak, the cohort shifted focus to strategic scenarios. Marcus observed his comrades, learning to anticipate attacks and reinforce weak points in the formation. The centurion moved among them, issuing commands and adjusting positions, emphasizing adaptability under pressure. Every drill reinforced the critical lesson. A legionary's skill was not measured by strength alone, but by intelligence, discipline, and the ability to act as one with the unit. By late afternoon, the exercises concluded. Marcus leaned against his scutum, catching his breath while surveying the fortified hill. Pride and fatigue mingled in his chest. The day had tested his endurance, skill, and resolve. Around him, soldiers cleaned weapons, repaired minor damage to armor, and shared quiet words of encouragement. The cohesion of the cohort, built through relentless training and shared hardship, was palpable, a living testament to the might of Rome's legions. As the cohort marched back to the camp, Marcus felt the heavy weight of exhaustion settle into his muscles. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the road. Each step was measured, every movement precise despite fatigue. Soldiers exchanged brief remarks, some laughing softly, others silent in reflection. The day's drills and exercises had tested them, but the return march reminded them of the discipline required even in moments of relief. Upon arrival, Marcus tended to his equipment. The scutum was cleaned and checked for cracks, the gladius sharpened, and leather straps oiled. Other soldiers performed similar rituals, each man ensuring his gear was battle-ready. This care was as important as the drills. A neglected weapon could mean death in the chaos of combat. Marcus felt satisfaction in the meticulous routine, pride swelling at his diligence. Dinner was a simple affair: bread, salted meat, and watered wine. But conversation flowed quietly among comrades. Tales of past campaigns, clever maneuvers, and narrowly avoided dangers were shared with humor and solemnity. Marcus listened, contributing when he could, feeling the camaraderie that bound the legionaries together. Even in modest meals, the bonds of the cohort were strengthened, as shared experience and mutual respect forged a sense of unity deeper than any armor. As darkness settled, Marcus walked to the edge of the camp, staring at the star-strewn sky. Thoughts of home mingled with reflections on the day's lessons. The life of a legionary was demanding, blending physical endurance, mental fortitude, and unwavering discipline. Yet Marcus felt a deep satisfaction in his service. Rome's power rested on men like him, dedicated, skilled, and resilient. With the night air cooling his sweat-drenched tunic, he returned to his tent, ready to rest and rise again for the challenges that awaited. The following morning, Marcus awoke before dawn once again, muscles still sore from the previous day's exertions. The camp was quiet except for the distant clatter of soldiers preparing for the day. He performed his morning routine meticulously, washing quickly, donning his armor, and checking his weapons. Each movement was ingrained from countless repetitions, yet he approached them with focus, aware that discipline and preparedness defined a legionary's life. Breakfast was brief, consumed with efficiency. Marcus ate dry bread and cheese while listening to the murmurs of his comrades. Some spoke of distant provinces, battles they had fought, or rumors circulating through the legion. Marcus absorbed the stories, learning from their experiences. Every piece of knowledge was valuable. Survival depended not only on skill but on awareness and understanding of the broader world beyond the camp. Orders for the day were delivered swiftly by the centurion. The cohort would engage in reconnaissance exercises, scouting the nearby hills and forests for potential threats. Marcus felt a familiar mix of anticipation and responsibility. Each mission was an opportunity to test skill, judgment, and teamwork. He mentally prepared, reviewing formations, hand signals, and contingency plans for unexpected encounters. As they departed, the soldiers fell into rhythm, marching with precision. The sun had barely risen, and the air was crisp with the scent of morning dew. Marcus's pack and armor pressed heavily on his shoulders, yet he maintained focus. Around him, comrades moved in perfect synchronization, a living testament to the discipline and unity of Rome's legions. Each step reinforced cohesion, trust, and readiness, qualities essential for survival on the unpredictable frontier. The cohort moved cautiously through the forested hills, each soldier alert to the slightest sound or movement. Marcus scanned the surroundings, eyes sharp, ears attuned to snapping twigs or rustling leaves. Every step was measured, every gesture precise. The centurion had emphasized vigilance. The slightest lapse could turn a routine reconnaissance into disaster. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility, knowing that not only his life, but the safety of his comrades depended on his awareness. As they ascended a ridge, Marcus spotted signs of recent activity: broken branches, footprints, and disturbed soil. He signaled quietly to those around him, alerting the soldiers to potential threats. The centurion approached, nodding in approval at his attention to detail. They paused, observing the area, analyzing patterns, and planning movement. Strategy and caution were paramount. Every decision could alter the outcome of a possible encounter. Suddenly, a distant shout echoed through the trees. The soldiers froze, instantly assuming defensive positions. Marcus raised his scutum, scanning for the source. His gladius was ready at his side, fingers tightening on the hilt. The tension was palpable, hearts pounding in synchrony with the rhythm of the marching steps moments earlier. The forest, so calm before, now felt alive with hidden dangers. The centurion issued orders in rapid succession, directing scouts to investigate while the main cohort formed protective lines. Marcus advanced cautiously, moving in unison with the men beside him. Every sense was heightened, each motion deliberate. The thrill of alertness mingled with fear, a reminder that even the most disciplined legionaries were not immune to the unpredictability of the frontier. The forest held secrets, and Rome's soldiers were tasked with uncovering them without faltering. A sudden rustle among the trees revealed a small group of enemy scouts. Marcus's heart raced, yet he moved with practiced calm, raising his scutum and stepping into formation. The centurion barked orders, positioning the cohort to encircle and contain the threat. Marcus felt the weight of his armor and shield, but discipline and training guided every movement. There was no hesitation, only precision and coordination. The enemy scouts attempted to flee, but the legionaries pressed forward with calculated steps. Marcus advanced steadily, gladius ready, watching for any sudden attacks. The clash of shields and shouted commands echoed through the forest. Sweat streamed down his face as adrenaline surged through his body. The moment was tense, each decision crucial. Yet Marcus relied on training and trust in his comrades. One of the enemies slipped behind a tree, attempting a surprise strike. Marcus pivoted swiftly, blocking with his scutum and countering with a controlled thrust of his gladius. The enemy fell back, retreating into the underbrush. Marcus's movements were a seamless combination of defense and offense, honed through relentless drills. Around him, soldiers executed similar maneuvers, the cohesion of the unit evident in every precise motion. As the skirmish ended, the enemy scouts vanished into the forest, leaving the legionaries vigilant but unharmed. Marcus lowered his scutum, breathing heavily, heart still racing. The centurion praised their coordination and composure, emphasizing the importance of discipline and readiness. Marcus felt pride swell within him. This brief engagement had tested skill, focus, and teamwork, reinforcing the lessons of countless days spent preparing for the uncertainties of war. After the brief skirmish, the cohort regrouped at a small clearing to assess the situation. Marcus wiped the sweat and grime from his face, adjusting his armor and scanning the surroundings. The centurion instructed scouts to report any further enemy movements while the main unit maintained a defensive perimeter. Every soldier remained alert, knowing that even a minor lapse could allow hidden threats to emerge. Marcus studied the terrain carefully. Broken branches and trampled grass told the story of the enemy's movement. He exchanged brief nods with nearby comrades, silently communicating observations. The centurion moved among them, asking questions and highlighting key tactical points. Marcus appreciated these lessons. Every encounter, no matter how brief, was an opportunity to refine skill, judgment, and situational awareness. The unit spent hours monitoring the area, ensuring no enemy remained nearby. Marcus felt the strain in his muscles but pushed through, maintaining vigilance. The forest shadows deepened as the sun began its descent, and every sound seemed amplified. The rustle of leaves, the snap of twigs, the distant calls of wildlife. Discipline and attention to detail were paramount. The legionaries could not afford complacency. By late afternoon, the centurion deemed the area secure. The cohort prepared to return to camp, adjusting packs, checking weapons, and ensuring the formation remained intact. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and accomplishment. The reconnaissance had tested endurance, tactical thinking, and unit cohesion. As they began the march back, he reflected on the lessons of the day. Vigilance, discipline, and trust in one's comrades were as vital as the strength of arms in the life of a Roman legionary. The march back to the camp was quiet, the soldiers weary from the day's exertions. Marcus felt the weight of his pack and armor more acutely with each step, yet he maintained perfect formation. Around him, comrades exchanged brief words, sharing observations or quietly laughing at minor mishaps. The unity of the cohort was evident, even in fatigue. Discipline and mutual trust guided every movement. Upon returning, the legionaries tended to their equipment. Marcus meticulously cleaned his gladius and scutum, checking for dents, cracks, or loose rivets. Armor was polished and leather straps oiled. The simple, repetitive tasks were a ritual of readiness, a constant reminder that even the smallest oversight could be deadly in battle. Marcus took pride in the care of his gear, knowing it represented both his skill and his commitment to Rome. Dinner was modest but nourishing: bread, cheese, and salted meat. Soldiers gathered around small fires, sharing stories and observations from the day. Marcus listened intently, contributing sparingly, his mind replaying the events of the reconnaissance and skirmish. Comradeship was reinforced in these quiet moments, bonds strengthened by shared hardship, mutual respect, and the unspoken understanding that each man's survival depended on the others. As night settled over the camp, Marcus walked to the edge, gazing at the stars. Fatigue pressed heavily upon him, but his mind remained alert, reflecting on the lessons of the day. The life of a legionary demanded constant vigilance, discipline, and endurance, both physical and mental. Yet Marcus felt satisfaction and purpose, knowing that through his service, he upheld the strength and glory of Rome. He returned to his tent, preparing to rest, yet ready to rise again at dawn to face whatever challenges awaited. Night fell over the camp, and Marcus lay on his straw bedding, staring at the faint glow of the embers from nearby fires. Sleep was elusive. His mind replayed the events of the day: the march, the skirmish, and the reconnaissance. Each decision, each movement, felt weighty in retrospect. The life of a legionary demanded not only strength but constant vigilance, and Marcus knew the dangers of complacency all too well. He rose quietly, stepping outside the tent to observe the camp. Shadows stretched long across the ground, and the torches flickered against the tents. Marcus listened to the soft sounds of the night, the distant river, the occasional crack of a branch, and the murmurs of fellow soldiers. Even in the calm, he remained alert, mentally preparing for potential threats. The forest surrounding the camp could conceal enemies, and Rome relied on men like him to remain watchful. Marcus's thoughts drifted to home and family, faces and memories that felt both distant and urgent. The longing was tempered by duty. His life belonged to the legion, and to Rome. Yet these moments of quiet reflection strengthened his resolve. He understood that courage was not merely physical bravery in battle, but also the fortitude to endure separation, uncertainty, and fatigue without faltering. Returning to his bedding, Marcus allowed himself a few moments of rest. His body was exhausted, but his mind remained disciplined, replaying drills, formations, and strategies. Sleep finally came slowly, carrying both weariness and preparedness. The stars above shone silently, witnesses to the life of a soldier devoted to Rome, a life of discipline, vigilance, and unwavering commitment. Dawn arrived quietly, painting the camp in pale gold. Marcus stirred from his bedding, muscles stiff from the previous day's exertions. The air was crisp, carrying scents of dew and wood smoke. Soldiers moved methodically, performing morning routines with practiced precision. Marcus washed quickly, adjusted his armor, and checked his weapons, aware that each day demanded complete readiness and unwavering focus. Breakfast was brief but sustaining. Marcus ate dry bread and cheese while listening to the murmurs of fellow legionaries. The centurion had already posted orders for the day, a combined exercise of formation drills and reconnaissance beyond the outer perimeter. Marcus felt anticipation mixed with fatigue. Each task tested not only strength and skill but also coordination, patience, and the ability to think quickly under pressure. The cohort assembled promptly. Centurion Gaius inspected the lines, eyes sharp and commanding. Marcus straightened his posture, feeling the familiar weight of the lorica segmentata and scutum. Orders were given swiftly, and the soldiers fell into formation. Precision and discipline guided every step, every movement. The march toward the training grounds was steady, the rhythm of hundreds of sandals striking the ground in perfect unison, a testament to the unity of Rome's legions. Upon reaching the designated area, the exercises began. Marcus and his comrades practiced complex maneuvers, simulating attacks and defenses against imaginary enemies. Shields clashed, gladi glinted in the morning light, and commands rang out crisply. Marcus moved with focus, synchronizing every action with his fellow soldiers. Each drill reinforced not only skill but the cohesion and trust that were the backbone of the legion. Discipline and teamwork were paramount. A single mistake could compromise the entire formation. The morning drills escalated into full-scale tactical exercises. Marcus's cohort simulated an assault on a fortified position, shields forming an unbroken wall as gladi swept in practiced arcs. Commands from the centurion were shouted and echoed, testing their speed, precision, and adaptability. Marcus felt adrenaline surge, muscles moving instinctively, every motion reinforced by relentless training. The cohesion of the unit was apparent in every step and swing, a testament to years of discipline. Smoke from small controlled fires filled the air, adding realism to the maneuvers. Marcus's senses sharpened, his eyes scanned for openings, his ears caught subtle commands and warnings from comrades. The scenario was demanding, testing not only physical endurance but decision-making under pressure. He parried and thrust with exactness, matching every movement of his fellow soldiers. Each drill was a rehearsal for chaos, designed to forge readiness for the unpredictable battlefield. As the exercise continued, Marcus noted weaknesses in their formation and quickly adjusted, signaling to comrades to close gaps. The centurion observed closely, praising quick thinking and precision. Marcus felt a surge of pride. The unity and discipline of the legion, honed through years of repetition, had enabled them to respond fluidly to changing circumstances. The exercise was more than practice. It was a demonstration of the legion's formidable power. By midday, the maneuvers concluded. Marcus and the soldiers were exhausted, sweat soaking through tunics, muscles aching from relentless exertion. Yet there was satisfaction in every precise action executed, every command followed without hesitation. The centurion commended the cohort for cohesion and skill, emphasizing lessons learned from minor mistakes. Marcus reflected on the day's training, understanding that each challenge strengthened his body, mind, and the unbreakable bond with his comrades. By noon, the cohort paused for a brief meal. Marcus sat on a rough patch of ground, tearing bread and sharing salted meat with nearby soldiers. Conversations were low, filled with reflections on the morning exercises. Some joked to lighten the mood, while others quietly nursed sore muscles. Marcus listened, occasionally contributing, feeling a deep sense of camaraderie. These moments of respite strengthened bonds just as much as the drills had. As he ate, Marcus thought about the lessons embedded in every movement of the morning. Discipline, precision, and unity were not just rules. They were the essence of survival. Every parry, every step, every synchronized action ensured the safety of his comrades and the effectiveness of the legion. He realized that the weight he bore was both physical and symbolic, representing the responsibility and honor of serving Rome. After the meal, the centurion called the soldiers to continue with lighter drills and observation exercises. Marcus adjusted his armor and prepared his gladius, muscles still aching from the morning exertion. The exercises emphasized reconnaissance, alertness, and coordination, with a focus on detecting subtle movements and anticipating potential threats. Marcus's senses remained sharp, his mind engaged even as fatigue lingered. The afternoon passed in steady rhythm, blending observation, minor drills, and reflections on strategy. Marcus took note of terrain, practiced signaling with hand gestures, and observed how minor adjustments could strengthen formations. Each activity reinforced the legion's philosophy. Readiness and adaptability were as crucial as raw strength. By late afternoon, Marcus felt a profound satisfaction. Though exhausted, he knew the day had honed his skill, focus, and sense of duty. As the sun began to set, the cohort marched back toward the camp, feet striking the ground in steady rhythm. Marcus felt a familiar ache in his muscles, yet his movements remained precise. Around him, soldiers shared quiet conversation or silently observed the fading landscape. The discipline of the march reinforced their unity. Even in fatigue, every soldier remained alert, every formation intact. Upon returning, Marcus immediately attended to his armor and weapons. The scutum was inspected for cracks, leather straps oiled, and gladius sharpened. His meticulous care ensured that equipment was ready for the next day's drills or any unforeseen skirmish. The act of maintenance, though routine, was a ritual that reinforced the pride and responsibility inherent in a legionary's life. Dinner followed shortly after, a simple meal of bread, salted meat, and water. Marcus sat among comrades, exchanging stories of campaigns and reflecting on the day's events. Laughter was rare but treasured, a momentary respite from relentless discipline. These quiet hours strengthened camaraderie, reminding each soldier that survival depended not only on individual skill but also on the bond shared within the cohort. As darkness fell over the camp, Marcus walked to the edge, gazing at the stars above. The events of the day, the marches, drills, reconnaissance, and skirmish, played over in his mind. Fatigue pressed heavily, yet his thoughts remained disciplined, reflecting on lessons learned and strategies perfected. He returned to his tent, ready for rest, knowing that another challenging day awaited, and that Rome relied on his vigilance, skill, and unwavering resolve. Night fell over the camp, and Marcus lay on his straw bedding, staring at the faint glow of embers from the nearby fires. His body ached, yet sleep eluded him. Thoughts of the day's events, marches, drills, and skirmishes, cycled relentlessly in his mind. The discipline of a legionary extended beyond the physical. Mental vigilance was constant, a reminder that danger could arise at any hour. He rose quietly, stepping outside the tent to observe the camp under the starlit sky. Shadows stretched long, and torches flickered against tents and palisades. Marcus listened intently. The distant river, the rustle of leaves, and soft murmurs of fellow soldiers. Even in this calm, alertness remained essential. Rome relied on men like him to remain watchful, to ensure the safety of comrades and the integrity of the camp. Thoughts drifted to home and family, faces and voices that felt both distant and urgent. Longing mingled with duty. His life belonged to the legion and the glory of Rome. Yet these quiet reflections strengthened his resolve. Courage was not only physical bravery, but also endurance through separation, uncertainty, and fatigue. Marcus understood that inner strength was as critical as skill with the gladius. Finally, he returned to his bedding, muscles sore, mind still alert. Sleep came slowly, a mixture of exhaustion and readiness. Stars above watched silently, witnesses to the life of a soldier devoted to Rome. Disciplined, vigilant, and unwavering. Marcus drifted into slumber, prepared to rise with the dawn, to face the next day with the same resilience and dedication that defined him as a Roman legionary. The next morning dawned bright and clear, yet Marcus felt a profound sense of closure as he prepared for the day. He donned his armor carefully, checked his gladius, and adjusted his scutum, as he had countless times before. But today was different. Each movement carried reflection, a recognition of the discipline, courage, and endurance that had defined him through countless marches, drills, and skirmishes. Rome had forged him, but he also understood the man he had become. The cohort assembled for their morning formation one final time. Marcus fell into line, the rhythm of hundreds of sandals striking the ground a steady heartbeat of unity. The centurion inspected the soldiers, nodding approvingly. Marcus felt pride swell within him, not just for his own actions, but for the cohesion, trust, and loyalty shared among all his comrades. They were more than soldiers. They were a living embodiment of Rome's strength and resilience. As the sun climbed, Marcus took a quiet moment near the edge of the camp, gazing across the distant hills. Memories of the day, of the marches, skirmishes, and training exercises passed through his mind. He thought of home, of loved ones far away, and of the countless legionaries who had come before him. The weight of duty had been heavy, but it had shaped him, instilling purpose, honor, and unwavering resolve. He understood that every step, every lesson, every trial had been part of becoming a soldier of Rome. As evening fell, Marcus returned to his tent for the final rest of this cycle. The camp was calm, torches flickering softly against the night sky. He lay on his straw bedding, muscles aching yet mind clear. Sleep came easily this time, a deep and deserved reprieve. In his dreams, there were no battles or orders, only a sense of completion and pride. Marcus had endured, grown, and fulfilled his duty. Rome's legionaries marched on, but for Marcus, this day, and the lessons it carried, would remain eternal, a testament to courage, discipline, and the unyielding spirit of a Roman soldier.